Hey, how's it going? Welcome back. We're in the middle of a CB175 teardown, and we know a lot more information than we knew yesterday. So what you see in front of you is, moving from left to right, these are the pistons and the wrist pins for them. And here is the camshaft cover that goes on the left side of the head. And this is the head itself. You're looking at the intake side on this side, and here's the exhaust side over here. The exhaust port is out front, the intake ports are here. The valves are still in the head, and we'll talk about that in a minute. What did I have trouble with? I didn't have any trouble getting the pistons off of the connecting rods once I had the pistons, the cylinder removed off the top of the pistons. As I was going through them, the pistons both exhibited some very interesting characteristics, one of which is that all of the rings, all three sets, are essentially fused into the pistons, probably from decades of lack of use and the oil just kind of corroding in there. But it may have been also because it was run hard at some point in its life. It was a non-running motor when I got it. And so here we're going to look at this particular piston. Let me show you what this is. The right hand side piston. This is the intake side, and we're going to now look at the exhaust side. And I want you to look very closely right here at this point. You can just see some deflection in the skirt right here. And if you look very closely at the top of that deflection, you may or may not be able to see, there is a crack about a quarter of an inch long, running parallel to the bottom of the skirt, right about just where my finger is running across, right there. And so you can almost see the shadow of it there in the light. Underneath the shadow, is just above the top of that shadow is where the crack is. So this shows an indication that this piston at some point came down and hit something inside of the motor, probably the crankshaft itself. On return, you can see that there's some impact damage here and here as well. So it hit something in rotation. This one is just like it came out. I was able to pull some of the oil ring out of that one, and you can see it is here in pieces. So not in any kind of shape whatsoever. The top two rings are both still frozen into this piston as well. Now, the left piston is not in as bad a shape. The oil ring in it was, again, part of what that debris is over there on the countertop. It's possible that this piston could be reused if I can get these top two rings, these compression rings, out of it. And I honestly don't know if that's going to happen. I can put this into, some kind of Mr. Oil, something, and soak it for weeks and see whether or not that corrosion will eventually loosen up and allow these rings to spring back out so that I can take them out. But right now, they are absolutely locked down as tight as they can be inside the piston. So that's the first discovery. Question: why would a piston slap some part of the motor during rotation? Well, if it's out of cycle with what it's normally supposed to be, if it was out of the actual precise sequence of the timing chain rotating the engine around, it is possible that would cause the piston skirt to hit the bottom. That's one thing. And so what would cause the thing to be out of cycle? Well, here's the camshaft. And by the way, I had trouble getting the camshaft out of this because the cup which the camshaft goes in was essentially broken on the side of the motor. Here's the cup that normally rides in this portion of the head right here. And this is the collar that seats inside of this, and you see it's broken off. It was fractured when I was able to get it exposed, and it just kind of fell apart when I pulled it off there. I don't know if anybody ever had that off of the motorcycle. And these two pieces are what the camshaft is supposed to ride in. Okay, and so this is back together again about like it was earlier, and it wouldn't come off of there. Okay, it still won't pass over it. See how it's supposed to just slide off of there, and part of the reason that it won't slide off of there is because of the amount of galling that remade the inside of this to the point so you can't actually have a smooth passage for this 20 millimeter camshaft end. So it's you know, however many parts of a millimeter it's off, it's no longer round and true anymore. I had to cut top and bottom of the two and then crack this thing off of the camshaft. That's how bad it was. In actual measurement here on the camshaft end, you can see that a piece of the camshaft is missing right here. Okay, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there it is. Yeah. So it's out of round now at that end. And the amount of deflection, that portion of the camshaft is supposed to be straight, 20 millimeters wide. It measures at the lowest point 18.3 millimeters. So about 1.7 millimeters of material is missing off of what ought to be a straight camshaft bearing end. So this may be toast. I might be able to press the cam chain gear off of this and save that, but I don't think we can have this welded up and then ground down again. Even if we did, what would we do about this piece right here? We could probably weld that in too, but you gotta wonder how much is that relative to buying a new camshaft. And notice that there isn't a hole in this anymore for the indexing pin that goes inside of the camshaft end. That's probably what got burned up and caused all the scoring in the first place. Never know, but that's the diagnosis at this point. So the good news is that this cup is relatively inexpensive to buy, and I get a replacement for it. Camshafts are not inexpensive. They're about $100 to $150, depending on when you can find them and in what kind of shape. So that is something to be considered in deciding whether or not we're going to rebuild this motor at this point. And the next video is going to be taking the valves out of the head. And that's going to be published probably tomorrow as soon as I get that done. But I thought I'd give you one more look at the bottom of the head. And you can see the intake port here on this side is open, has been open to the weather all these years, as well as the exhaust port on the right hand side. So more to come, but I thought you guys who are interested might want to get filled in. Thanks so very much, and there'll be more to follow. Take care.